good afternoon everybody on YouTube. We're back here with Robert Shenner, our CME, and as you can see in the background and from a few pictures beforehand, that Mad Bess is sitting there simmering away, and it's a good occasion. It's been a long time coming, 3 years through a pandemic and that we've taken to get the 10-year overhaul done. So we're now at the very latter stages, and today we're having a boiler test, and we're waiting for the boiler tester Andrew Reen to arrive. I thought we'd just talk to Robert and he can kind of run you through what a boiler test entails. There's been obviously lots of work leading up to this, and some things to do with the boiler test a couple of weeks ago. So Robert, if you'd like to just give us a brief synopsis of what we have a boiler test for and the bits you've done leading up to, including the dry stuff. So
so it's very important to test steam boilers, because what you've got in there is quite a lot of water and quite a lot of steam at anything up to 180 psi, and that's at 190 degrees centigrade. Apologies, I don't know what it is in Fahrenheit, but you can do your own conversions. So if there are any hidden flaws or anything with the boiler, that would clearly be an inadvisable state to be in. So what we do with steam boilers under pressure vessel regs and everything else is we have an independent competent person, who is Andrew Reen, as Murray mentioned just now, comes down and is the official boiler inspector. We keep on referring to this as the 10-year overhaul. The boiler has essentially 10 years of life on the frames before it has to come right out and strip down for full inspection. Once it's back in the frames, there's various jobs. So as Murray alluded to a couple of weeks ago, we did the in-frames hydraulic inspection. So it had a hydraulic test down at Bennett Boilers in Somerset, which is where the work was done, and that was all witnessed when it was out the frames and so on. A couple of weeks ago, Andrew was down to see it hydraulically tested in the frames, because obviously we've got a few bits and pieces that go on the boiler that weren't fitted down there, gauge glasses for the water level and so on. So that's taken up to 270 psi, but that's on cold water, so it gives you a margin of safety for when you're operating on steam at 180 psi. And then yes, today is the actual steam test and everything else, which is checking that the safety valves lift correctly and are able to clear sufficient steam to keep the boiler pressure at its maximum working pressure, which is 180 psi, even when we have the burners on full, if you decided to severely misfire the loco in some way. And then of course there's a few other little checks, just for sort of leakage and everything else that the boiler inspector has to satisfy themselves of when they're down here. And that's really all you will see today on the rest of the video.
And it's worth noting that although this is now the third time Andrew's been down to see it, as you've mentioned, once when at the Boilermakers, second time for a hydraulic test at the cold, and now today. But in between, you've been doing a lot of work, fettling and make sure there's no leaks and things. And like you say, we've had it steamed up already this morning and things ready for Andrew to come. So what kind of work have you been doing in between that, really?
Well, quite a lot really, but so it's had a couple of goes into light steam already, once to check for any initial leaks, and then a further time to check the safety valves and so on. There's obviously a lot that we can only really check once the loco's back together, so all of the burner arrangements and everything else have required a certain amount of refinement. And as Murray says, we've had it tested previously, so we've tested on air from the shop compressor here and so on. But these things are always different when they warm up and everything else. So a few little niggles, but no real showstoppers at the moment.
Yeah, so just talking a little niggles, because I mean, it's no shame in saying, you know, there's a few things. I think you said there's a little problem with the steam air compressor at the moment. Is there anything else that's causing you a little bit of trouble that you need to just finalise? Not
really. The burners are just taking a bit of learning what they want to be set at, because the burner arrangement is different to what it was previously, and an effort to those who are familiar with the loco may recall flames shooting out the bottom previously. Hopefully that should be a thing of the past, but we'll see with that. But yes, takes a bit of establishment, and also we've got rid of the fuel pump as well on that system, which was a major source of unreliability. But yes, beyond that, it's really, as you say, Murray, it's just the air pump, which, as is the want of all these things, takes a bit of doing. It's had new glands and everything else, and it's really going to be a case of partially running it in, and also just getting the packing right and so on, which is a bit of a bind because it's an opposed piston pump, so trying to get at the glands is quite fun, but we will get there.
And so after today then, Robert, I know you said you've had it just moving very slowly up and down the yard. You know, if you get these other little bits out of the way, and then I guess it'll move on to some running around and actual movement tests and things like that. Give us an idea of what you're looking to do with that.
So yes, we will have it just sort of out and back in the yard, as you say, and get a few things checked. The next step will probably be some either light engine moves or a very short nominal train, not in passenger service, just to check everything's happy and do things like go over to the far side where our fuel supply is, so that's a useful place to be on occasion. Once all of that's done and it seems to be operating reliably, or at least reliably enough, subject to things running in and everything else, then it's going to be a case of possibly try on a few light passenger trains and, with a bit of luck, get things for the Santas, but we will just have to see how the process of recommissioning goes.
So yeah, you've kind of stolen my thunder there, Robert.
Yeah,
obviously
sorry.
everybody was going to, the question was going to be when will it be back in steam and when will it be hauling passengers again. So we've got our Santas coming up in December. Obviously you make no promises because
No.
steam engines are a living, breathing thing, and you know we're trying to get it ready. But you're hopeful that Santas should be achievable. And then after the Santas, we obviously got the railway shutdown. Do you plan to do any further work in the shutdown in January, February?
As should be obvious to people, it's currently still in undercoat and so on. So that's probably the time it will be getting painted, which obviously involves a certain amount of taking to bits again to get at various bits and pieces, but we wanted to be quite sure the thing worked first before we got to that stage, and then beyond that there'll be a few more bits and pieces and any minor modifications that have come up through any running that occurs between sort of now and January, but yes, so hopefully back in green in time for probably the open day next year.
And I was going to say, obviously, yeah, like you just mentioned, it's going to be in undercoat for a little while. Going back into its original colour of green, which our members voted to keep because we had a society vote on changing the colour scheme or keeping the same. What colour green is that? What roughly colour? What's it similar to, Robert?
Well, it's malachite green, so it's southern green, which was what the original vote of the membership back in the mid-90s was, as far as livery went. So yes, back into that. It's subtly closer shade than it was last time, so people may notice a slight difference.
And that's with the yellow and black lining like it originally had.
Yeah.
And well, thank you very much, Robert. Let's hope the next few pictures you'll see and video is when Andrew's here, and I may get him if he's willing to say a few things about his side of the job and what he does. But for now, thanks, Robert, and let's hope the steam test is successful and we get the certificate.
Well, yes. Yeah. So you've transferred all the measurements from the previous jobs, yeah?
And then we've got all the information from what was done at Bennett Boilers.
Yeah.
And then this is the information on what you've done as Ruislip on sorting out
That
the
side.
system.
So yes, so we've got to complete both ends of the book.
Yeah. And then down the bottom we've got the information for the test cage.
Oh, so when you were using it. If I can even get the spanner in. Yeah.
thread goes down right next to that. The bottom of that injector is a bit cold, so I haven't added remember from Bennett, these are actually new nipples to the bottom here, so the last ones were just flush on the bottom, so of course they didn't seal properly because the thread's skewed. So now they've just got a tiny bit in the top bottom.
It's like we just round at the bottom there. If you come round the side, you see kind of the same thing on the mirror.
Oh yeah, just just a touch. Yeah, I'll have a go and see if I can get a bit more on that when it's not live and I'm not pressure.
On that joint there, right at the top here, up down there.
Yeah, I'll get a bit more on that.
Yeah.
I don't get these in there.
Shall I try the other one?
Oh yes, sir. I use the correct valve. I put the valves on, but even I can't remember which
Yeah, I
valve
know.
to hit.
We all do it. We've got a little bit of a fish around that top.
Get back.
Yeah.
We're currently at top nuts because being on here, it's keeping the water fairly high just to avoid the front of the tube bank getting too close.